Just 8 game weeks of the season left and there's a fixture swing. I think it's time to get that second wildcard out. What is up everyone, welcome back to another video. So as I alluded to in the intro, we're going to have a look at a bit of a Game Week 31 wildcard as well as some key players to own. So even if you don't have your wildcard left, we'll have a look at some key players I think you guys should own, some differentials as well. So even without your wildcard, I think you should be targeting some of those players. So the reason a lot of us are considering, and I will be playing my wildcard in Game Week 31, is as you can see there are quite a lot of players that potentially have a bit of a fixture swing coming up. So Leeds, for example, Aston Villa, Brighton, a lot of those players that we potentially had in looking at Game Week 29 and Game Week 30, they've now got a tough fixture coming. Whereas you've got the teams like Wolves, you've got West Ham with a nice fixture run coming, you've got Everton in there as well, Chelsea as well. Some real fixture swings coming up, so we will potentially be wanting to shift where our focus is in terms of teams that we're owning at the moment. So looking at some of those teams that potentially have a bit of a difficult fixture run and we should maybe own less of or none of going into the final 8 game weeks of the season, we've got Aston Villa, Brighton, Crystal Palace, Fulham, Newcastle and West Brom. Now, we probably don't own that many of these teams except Aston Villa, where and I'm sure a lot of you have 2 or 3 of these assets, so I would potentially be looking to own maybe 1 or none of these going into the final section of the season. They've been great for us for a lot of the season, but it is a difficult run of fixtures that they've got coming up. Brighton and Fulham as well, you may own 1 or 2. That's all right if you can find a way to rotate them, but there are probably other cheap alternatives that you can look at. Next up, we got teams with sort of mixed fixtures that you will want to own and probably want to include a lot of these going into that wildcard or going into that final section of the season. So you've got Sheffield United, Man City, Spurs, Everton, Burnley, then Leeds, Manchester United, Southampton and Chelsea. So a lot of us will have players from these teams like Leeds, Manchester United, Tottenham and Chelsea. They've got good fixtures and I wouldn't advise not owning them, and they've definitely players that we should look to include. But then the sort of 5 teams that I think have the best run of fixtures that we should target. We've got Arsenal, West Ham, Leicester, Wolves and Liverpool. And we'll get into a bit more detail about which of the players we should own. But that's probably how I'd segment the teams and their fixtures going into the final 8 game weeks of the season. So what we're going to do now is first off have a look at some of the key players to own. So first up we will have Harry Kane. Now, I think that's pretty self-explanatory. They have a double game week in Game Week 32. Whether you have your triple captain left or not, he will probably be the most captain player in that game week, and I would be very scared going into that game week without him. I think he's a great player at the moment. He's that focal point for Tottenham. They don't have the Europa League, so we know he's going to start every game in the league. He is that main focal point. He's their main goal threat, so I really wouldn't advise going to this final section of the season without Harry Kane. Next up, we'll add another forward into the list, which is Mikel Antonio. Now, Antonio has been great when he's been fit. He has missed part of the seasons through injury, but we've seen in recent weeks what West Ham are capable of going forward. Now, I did think about putting Jesse Lingard in here, but I have gone with Antonio. There are so many other midfield options that you could get in terms of Lingard, but I think Antonio at his price is a really nice asset to own given their fixtures in the final game weeks of the season. Next up, we have Bruno Fernandes, another one which is probably quite obvious to you. Their fixtures aren't as good as maybe they've been. They've got some good ones and some not quite so good ones, but he's the highest scoring player in FPL so far. I expect him to continue to get returns, so there's not that much to explain about why I expect as many people as possible wanting to own Bruno Fernandes for the final game weeks. The next one I've got is Rudiger. Now, this doesn't have to be Rudiger, but this is a Chelsea defender. I know they've just conceded 5 to West Brom in Game Week 30, but their defence is still one of the best in the league, and I expect them to do so continuing throughout the rest of the season. They do have nice fixture runs, so whether it's Rudiger, Azpilicueta, Reece James, or you can look at Christensen or someone like that, Chilwell at left back, there will be rotation, but I still think it's worth owning one of these players going into their good run of fixtures that they've got. Next up, following on from teammate Antonio, we have Aaron Cresswell. Now, Aaron Cresswell has been one of the best performing, if not the most popular defender in FPL this season. Playing at left back or that sort of left-sided centre-back for West Ham, he's crossing it in, he's taking set pieces, and with the sort of run of fixtures that West Ham have for the rest of the season, I think Aaron Cresswell is definitely someone I will look to own, and I think you guys should definitely consider owning him as well. So those are a few key players, but now let's move on and have a look at some differentials that maybe not quite so many players own that you could use to boost up those ranks. So first of all, we'll start off with a defender, which is Trent Alexander-Arnold. Now, playing at right back for Liverpool, they've been a bit suspect recently, both from a defensive point of view, but just general performances. However, they seem to be getting a few better results on the bounce. Trent is definitely a key part of that. he crosses the ball in a lot. He's got a lot of attacking threat, which means when they keep a clean sheet, he's got a lot of high points potential, both from bonus points and from the attacking threat that he brings. At 7.3, it's quite expensive, but with the amount of money that we have not owning potentially the likes of Salah, I think it is worth trying to find a way to get Trent into your team given their run of fixtures that they have. Next up is another defender, is Kieran Tierney. So a bit like Trent, Arsenal's defensive form recently hasn't been quite as strong as maybe you'd hope, but he adds a lot of attacking threat on top of that, getting forward up the left wing with assists and goals. There is a nice run of fixtures coming up for Arsenal, so I would consider Tierney at 5.3. There is the risk of rotation going into the Europa League, but with the amount of money that we have, if you can have a strong bench, again, I think Tierney's a really good differential for the final portion of the season. Next up, we have Jamie Vardy. Now, I could have put Jamie Vardy in here, or I could have put his teammate Iheanacho. Now, both of them I think will be really nice differentials for the final section of the season. At 10.1 million, Vardy's a bit more expensive, but you have that slight more solidity that he's going to start every game. Now, when Maddison and Barnes come back from injury, there's a chance that Iheanacho gets rotated slightly, although I think he's on such good form that he will play most games. But Vardy at 10.1 million, I expect him to play every game. They've got a really nice run of fixtures. They don't have any European commitments, and they'll just need to keep winning these games if they want to get into the Champions League next season. Next on the differential list, we have Pedro Neto of Wolves. Now, Wolves have a really nice run of fixtures, pretty much starting in Gameweek 31 for about 5 game weeks. Now, there is rumours that Jimenez could be back fit for Wolves and could be getting back into starting lineup, which will really boost the output that they have. Now, Neto is on some set pieces. He's been the main attacking threat, even though they haven't scored a lot of goals. At just 5.7 million, I think he's a nice differential that you can rotate in and around your team in that midfield bracket. There are a lot of midfielders that are good to own at the moment, so it may be slightly difficult to bring him in and fit him into your lineups, but given their run of fixtures, it is a differential that I really do like. Finally, on this differential list, we have a midfielder from Liverpool, is Diego Jota. Now, at 6.6 million, I don't really expect Jota to be a differential for that much longer. I think a lot of people will be looking to bring him in, given the run of fixtures that Liverpool have, but he scores so many goals, and when he's on the pitch, when he gets starts, which he seems to be doing at the moment, he's always involved in their goals. So I know there's going to be rotation with the Champions League. You can say that about a lot of players, but Diego Jota playing through the middle of a lot of time at 6.6 million compared to the 12 million that you're going to play for Mane or Salah, I think he's a really nice differential that you could get in for the final run of the season. So with those sort of key players and a few differentials discussed there, let's have a look at how I currently have my wildcard draft and what I would be doing if I were you. Now, this will probably change between now and the deadline, but this is my current thinking and who I'd own when I play my Gameweek 31 wildcard. So if we start off with in goal, I have Forster of Southampton and Kasper Schmeichel. Now, Leicester have a really nice run of fixtures. It's quite difficult to choose which of their defenders to own. I could go for Ricardo Pereira in the defence, but at Schmeichel at 5.5, he does make a lot of saves and he's pretty good at saving penalties as well, so I do like him as an asset. And Forster at 4.0, he seems to be starting for Southampton at the moment. They have an okay run of fixtures, but it feels like a no-brainer just as your second backup keeper to pick Forster. It's worth that 0.1 million over some of the other 3.9 goalkeepers that aren't playing, just in case Schmeichel gets injured or something like that. Just have Forster as a backup for the final weeks of the season. Into the defence, so a few of those key players that I had owning, we've got Cresswell in there, and I've gone with Rudiger at the moment. Now, he didn't start in that Chelsea defeat, but I still think is a key part. With Thiago Silva suspended now, I do think Rudiger should get his place back in the team. Cresswell, again, a key player that I'll be wanting to own, and then Stuart Dallas of Leeds. Leeds were on that sort of mixed fixture list. They have some really nice ones and some less good fixtures, but if Dallas can continue playing at centre mid or even at left back when he gets his attacking threat, he can still do from there. I think going into that final section of the season, if I can rotate him into my team for those good fixtures, he's definitely a player that I will want to own and I think is a good one for everyone else to continue owning. Into the midfield, I've gone for a bit of a cheap enabler in Smith Rowe. Now, at 4.2, he's not starting every game, but he seems like a good option for Arsenal. When he does start, he's always involved. 4.2 million starting Arsenal midfielder. Given their fixture run, I think he's a good asset to own. Now, on the differential list, we had 2 Liverpool players and they've both found their way into my wildcard draft for the moment. So we've got Trent at 7.3 and Jota at 6.6. I think they're both offer good value. Jota in particular at 6.6, I think it's a no-brainer to own him going to these good run of fixtures. And then Trent, the clean sheets, they've got a few more recently. His attacking threat is there. It's a bit of a punt given what he's done in, I suppose, this season, but it's definitely one that I'm willing to take given their run of fixtures. Next up, we do currently have double Manchester City, and this is in Gundogan and John Stones. Now, a lot of us will be thinking maybe double Manchester City, given the rotation that we know Pep can do, may not be such a good idea. But the chances are that they don't come on, particularly Stones. He doesn't really make those substitute appearances. If he gets benched, they tend to stay there. So given the amount of money that we have, if you look at my defence, if I play John Stones, I'm probably going to be benching either Rudiger or Dallas, who may as well have a good fixture as well. So if he does get rested for the Champions League, then I will have someone else coming in. But the clean sheet potential that City have, the attacking threat that John Stones has, I do kind of want him in my team at just 5.3 million. And as I said, if he doesn't play, then there's always going to be someone coming off my bench. It's a similar story for Gundogan. He is a great asset, and at just sort of 5.8 is what I have him for now. I think he's a good asset, and at his price, I don't see anyone better. Potentially there's Rafinha of Leeds, but we can look at whether I own him in a minute. But I know there's that rotation risk, but I still want a bite of that Manchester City apple that they seem to be scoring so many goals at the moment. Next up, we have Bruno Fernandes. So he was on my essentials list and he is in my team. 11.5 million. He's that main asset. He's the highest scoring player in FPL at the moment. It is a slightly difficult run of fixtures for them compared to what we're used to. But yeah, always will be owning Fernandes for the rest of the season. Not too much detail needs to be going in with him. Next up, we have double Tottenham. Now, I've gone with Son and Kane. We did have Bale in here, but with the rotation that we're seeing, potentially he's fallen out of favour with Mourinho. I have gone with Son and Bale. We think Son's back fit. Kane, we know about Kane. And given their double game week in Game Week 32, I think it's pretty much a no-brainer to have at least two of the assets. I did consider, and I may consider going with one of the defenders for that Game Week 32 double game week. So I could have Reguilon in the likes of Stones just for that game. We can then transfer him out. But at the moment, we've got just two Tottenham assets in Son and Kane in my Game Week 31 wildcard. Next up, and finally, we have Antonio and Vardy. So Antonio was on that essentials list, whereas Vardy was on those differentials. Now, I could go Iheanacho if I needed to free up money, potentially to spend on Gundogan up to De Bruyne. If I think De Bruyne is such a better asset than Gundogan, then I could go Vardy down to Iheanacho in order to afford that. But at the moment, I've gone with Vardy. He's on penalties. He's that sort of nailed starter for them. I expect him to play every game left this season, whereas I'm not quite as certain with Iheanacho. And then I've gone with Antonio. Again, I could go with Lingard instead of Smith Rowe and then go for a cheaper forward and play a 3-5-2. But Antonio, when he's on his day, I think he's got more to give than Lingard does. So I have gone with Antonio. So at the moment, this is how my wildcard is lining up. I'm going for a sort of 3-4-3 formation at the moment, but maybe 4 at the back occasionally if all my defenders have a good fixture. I know I will be leaving points on my bench, but we have so much money to spend at the moment that I don't think it's too bad a thing to go with strength and depth in case there's an injury, in case there is that end of the season rotation that we have seen. So I've gone with that strength in case there's injuries or rotation. So just to sort of summarise some of those fixtures that we spoke about, just to wrap up on the video. So you've got those 5 teams to target. I own players from all of them, apart from Wolves, but I may consider going with one of their defenders as well, given how strong they've been. So Saiz could definitely find his way into my defence. And then I don't have any players from those teams to avoid team, and I'm focusing on those fixture runs, as I think that will really help me to get that final boost in the season. So if you've got questions about your team, whether you're on your wildcard or not, drop them in the comments down below and I will make sure to answer them ahead of the Game Week 31 deadline or throughout the rest of the season. I hope this video has been helpful. Yeah, let me know if you've got any questions, but that's sort of all we got time for. Drop a like on the video and subscribe to the channel if you are new. And good luck at Game Week 31, and I will see you all next time. Bye.